So after this week at the Monroe Institute, where I've been thinking a lot about consciousness, especially of how it relates to how I live in the world and how does that impact healing? And of course, my mind's all over all of these questions every day when I think about stuff and ponder about how to make an impact with my patients. But one of the things that we learn in metaphysical language, and maybe we would say our New Age spirituality, is about multidimensionality. So, is that just a New Age term? Well, from what I can understand and what I'm trying to learn more about, is it's been known for many, many years. And you can take, for example, the teachings of Padmasambhava, who is a Buddhist guru, that our consciousness, our reality exists in multiple places. We have a sense of our energy body, we have a sense of the 3D reality, and we have that which is eternal. And I know I'm missing a lot of the detail. So those of you who are students and masters of what Padmasambhava taught, you can understand this better. But when you also combine that with what I started to learn through my experience at the Monroe Institute, is that if our consciousness is eternal, if it exists outside of our physical body, if it can travel to different realms, and those realms are outside of space and time, then we have many, many facets of ourself that exist all the time, continuously, basically without limit. So let's try to really, really live our lives limitlessly. I'm not sure I'm saying that right. Limitlessly. Do everything you can to expand, experience, touch so many things, learn so many things, be present in so many things, be limitless. So at the Monroe Institute, when we did the guided meditations, journeys, very much like the shamanic journeys I had learned a while back, guided with hemisync music, which really can put you in an altered state and can get you there quicker. We experienced many different frequencies. I think Bob Monroe refers to these dimensions or spaces of awareness as focus levels. And they are similar to places I had traveled and journeyed in shamanic training. So the space of the quiet, focus 15, the space of unlimited expansion and connection to other worlds. There's that concept of unity consciousness that I think fits here. But I started to think about multidimensionality. Yes, I can understand we want to bring forth many different aspects of ourselves, but that's still anchored in the 3D reality. But if our consciousness is eternal, if our consciousness exists outside of this physical body, if our consciousness knows things outside of space and time, if we are connected to this vast, limitless universe, then maybe there are things about multidimensionality that really deserve to be thought about. So I thought to myself, it's more than just aspects of learning about things I can be and come forward with my current personality and characteristics. These are spaces that my consciousness can inhabit, and I see it as spaces unique to me in some aspects because my particular vibratory frequency resonates better with those spaces. Or maybe if I can dissolve some of my individual identity, and we could say that's the ego, and merge and dissolve into unity, then I'm really having dimensions and parts where my consciousness can inhabit and be aware of that extend far beyond this incarnation and far beyond this body. So physics is helping us pick this apart if you need the science explanation. But the metaphysics are taught very well by many deep teachers. One of them is Padmasambhava, a Buddhist guru from, I'm going to say 3,000 years ago, maybe. I don't remember. But he talked about aspects of reality, aspects of your consciousness, your awareness of your energy body, your awareness of the individual material world, your awareness of the universal. And some of the metaphysics teaches about diamond emanations, of which I know nothing in detail, excuse me, except the little bit that I have learned, makes me consider that operating at all times is my consciousness, my awareness in many spaces. And then this blows my mind. It's hard to figure this one out. But what if everything I consider as an incarnation is really not a chronologic occurrence? It's not that I lived in 1865 and died in 1897 and then had a few years in spiritual sitting, hanging out with the spirit guides and the angels, and then decide to come back again in 1903. Maybe all of those are literally awarenesses occurring all at the same time, that it's not bounded by time and space. Maybe those are resonances to experiences that my consciousness can do unlimited by space and time. So maybe past lives aren't really past. Maybe they're existing in our awareness all the time, simultaneously. Oh, excuse me, bad allergy season here. So then I think about physics, that you have all possibilities. A particle can be a wave, or a static particle can be dynamic. And what it becomes is when the observer looks at it. So I'll say that in metaphysical language. What if all of these things are simultaneously present outside of space and time? They are existing no matter what. And whether we pay attention to it, put our awareness to it, put our consciousness to it, determines whether it feels active, alive, and present. So then I tripped out from this into what I love to think about is, how do we access this quantum healing that seems to only occur with something miraculous? Certain healers who are somehow able to bring that about. And how do we with our everyday consciousness bring about that kind of healing? Well, I see that as, and again, when I say stepping back or stepping outside, I don't always mean back in time or outside in terms of my consciousness, because the reality that I am experiencing in the 3D world, and again, I'm trying to wrap my brain around this, is what has been locked into form by my awareness. And yet there are still parts of my energetic signature, my soul, my consciousness, my realities that are not locked in the 3D world. So how do I put that into healing words? And just in physics, as the observer locks down a possibility and brings it into form, brings it into material world, I see that as our intention, the power of our thought, locking our reality into the 3D world. So when I extend this to think about healing, yes, it's easy to start by saying you just have to really believe it. Maybe easy to say, that's harder to do. But perhaps it's even more than just that sort of thinking about it. Maybe it's really about locking in a new reality at the level of our infinite, subtle, energetic consciousness. And I think the master healers do this. I think they link up with the person at a soul level. I think about Frank Fool's Crow. I think about some of these miraculous healers. And together decide, it's probably unspoken, they decide to lock in, as in observe, as in intend, as in insist upon and believe a new, a new reality. So how then can we wrap our brains around our biology shifting that quickly? How do we think that we can think about it and boom, the physical can change? Well, I talked about this in depth, and you can find this on my YouTube channel, Maximum Medicine. I talked about this in depth with Buddhist practitioner Joseph Selby, who talks about, and he's written books about, that there are miraculous healings that occur literally in seconds. So biology is not limited by the trudging along of a biochemical pathway that in the lab we might say, well, in order to add the enzyme to this, and then you have to wait 20 minutes. He showed that these changes could literally happen as we in our human 3D mind are watching. Just boom, like that. And it comes back to what quantum physicists and some of metaphysicians are talking about, is that we are a projection of the universal field. That we aren't, and I don't know how to explain this, because I can touch and feel and I have senses and I have skin and anyway, but we are a projection into reality. That we are not fixed in this 3D world. So if I could say to other travelers and journeyers, perhaps the biggest journey, challenge, learning to be had by the world is to start to embody these things, these understandings, to start to explore consciousness. Because it's one thing to have your intention and your belief help you study for a test and ace it. It's another thing to scramble for a promotion in the company. But what if it's, let's say bigger, I mean more expansive. I don't mean better, because these are human experiences that are all valid, all valuable. But what if we could start to incorporate a reconnection with understanding how our consciousness and awareness drive everything? I remember, gosh, I'm older than you guys, I'm sure. Years ago, I'm going to say maybe at least 30 years ago, Richard Gere, and you know that he's a Tibetan Buddhist practitioner, he's a meditator. He was having a push for free Tibet. And he was talking about meditating, everybody meditating at the same time, with the idea, and back then this was sort of one of the spiritual teachings, if a butterfly flaps its wings here, can you feel it across the world? Anyway, so he was basically saying, let us put our consciousness together and shift this reality. I think the journey that we should, as humans, start to take, and it's stuff the shamanic practitioners knew. They wouldn't have the words like this, I'm sure. Theirs was much more experiential. They lived and breathed the connection to the universe. They felt everything in nature, in the rhythms, in the stars, and they had knowings, what we might call downloads. They had knowings from the Pleiades. They had knowings from Orion. They had knowings from the caverns in the Mayan limestone underground. But they knew that our consciousness existed far beyond the physical form. And nowadays we access that by meditation, probably because our 3D world is so sensory overload, information overload, experience overload. But they sat quietly in connection with nature, in connection with the galaxy, the stars, the universe. And they knew that our consciousness existed beyond our physical form. And that's why I think people nowadays are so hungry to connect with the indigenous. And to me, it's not simply doing an ayahuasca trip, even though that's very valuable for many people. And it's not understanding the power of ritual, because although that is incredible and a fabulous way to focus your awareness and your intention, I think people are really hungry for the indigenous because there was a connection to nature and the universe that we have gotten away from. I don't think we've lost it. We've perhaps lost our awareness of it. But that connection, to understand that we are an eternal awareness, we are multidimensional in that our awareness, our consciousness is actually in other realms at the same time it is guiding this human form. And those other realms might be what we perceive in our awareness as past lives. And they might be our out-of-body experiences, our astral projections, our remote viewing. But it can also be how we heal ourselves. And when Joseph Selby and I were talking about how literally the physical form can change in milliseconds. Now, that trips my mind out. It trips me out, I have to tell you. So I don't sit completely comfortably there in that spot of knowing that. But if we do know that and we aspire to learn more about it, then our biology is not fixed. Now, in my meditation group, one of the teachings that's coming in strongly over the past couple of years is the energies of freedom and free will and how that is playing out on our planet today. But then those energies also are playing out, if we can take this down into the cellular level, in our biology. What if our genetics, our DNA, our cellular mechanisms, our mitochondria, I love those, we'll talk about those another time. What if those were completely free to change based on our conscious awareness and intention? What if the cellular processes were not locked into, oh, well, only these genes are active, and those genes always transcribe or get copied into these particular proteins, which always live in this cell and can only be here, and our nerves never regenerate. They're too slow, they can't do that. And. What if there was more freedom? What if our biology was not locked? And Joseph would tell you that it's not. He's a deep practitioner who has studied this and practiced it for 40 years at least. So that, I think, is our human journey, the train trip that we need to buy a ticket for. To buy a ticket for a facet of our evolution, which is recognizing the value of our consciousness and our awareness in everything. Not just manifesting a new job, a new home, a new love life, but really, excuse me, in shifting how our planet operates in the 3D world, shifting how our biology can change. And on social media, there's lots of practitioners who are all about longevity and anti-aging. Maybe this is the pathway. Maybe it's not really about what supplements you take or peptides you inject. Although I think in the human 3D material, human body, those probably impact a lot. But what if we are back at a more powerful foundational space of our consciousness shifting biology and biology having the freedom to transform in the blink of an eye? In the blink of an eye. Now, that's what I'm studying. I don't know it all yet, but I'm telling you, there's a lot of juicy stuff here. And if you're a fellow traveler or even a newbie, think about taking some consciousness workshops, study shamanic healing, because that takes you into journeying in spaces that are not locked to your human form. Go to the Monroe Institute, although they're booked up for 14 months ahead, but just expand your awareness, because we are limitless. I know that in my bones. Can I prove it to you all the time and explaining it to you? Probably not. But I'm telling you, there's serious gold nuggets here. So, limitless. Together, we expand and we move our existence forward. And maybe that means, like Richard Gere wanted us all to join in meditation, maybe that means we link our consciousnesses in the universal field and we project a new reality for humanity. And that's what I think, this will be a topic for another talk. That's what I think the indigenous who dreamed our future were doing. We need to be dreamers again. Limitless, forward, expanded, awareness in multi dimensions. It's great stuff. Thanks for listening.